Okay, so today we're diving into this incredible continent-spanning vision to basically stitch a whole wilderness back together. It's a huge idea that was born from a crisis, and it has a name that's just as wild as its spirit, the Path of the Panther.
You know, for amazing species like the great green macaw or that super elusive jaguar, the forests they call home, well, they've become a bunch of disconnected islands. They need to move around, right? To find mates, to find food, but the very path they need to survive is invisible now, totally broken up by human development.
So, to really get why the solution is so brilliant, we first have to understand the problem. I mean, how did this paradise get so shattered in the first place?
Central America is, without a doubt, one of the most life-rich places on the entire planet. But over the last century, it's also seen some of the highest deforestation rates anywhere in the world, mostly as forests were cleared for things like cattle ranching and big farms.
And the consequences? Well, they were stark. By 2010, you had countries like Nicaragua and El Salvador that have lost more than 2/3 of their original forest cover. And this didn't just shrink the habitat, it completely shattered it into pieces.
And this brings us right to the heart of the issue, habitat fragmentation. All these protected areas basically became what conservationists call islands of green, just floating in a sea of farms and pastures. The problem is, these islands are often way too small and way too isolated to support healthy, genetically diverse wildlife for the long haul.
But, and this is the cool part, out of this crisis came an equally ambitious solution. I mean, if the problem is that everything's broken apart, the answer has to be putting it back together, right? Reconnection.
The big idea was actually as elegant as the problem was bad. Create biological corridors to link up all those forest fragments. The original name, Paseo Panthera, or Path of the Panther, it just captures the goal perfectly. Imagine a continuous green highway for the region's widest-ranging animals.
And look, this isn't just some pipe dream. Costa Rica is our proof of concept here. The country has more than doubled its forest cover since the 1980s. That shows us that this kind of massive landscape recovery isn't just possible. It's literally already happened.
So let's actually trace this potential path. Let's take a little virtual journey along the proposed corridor, and we'll start way down in the dense forests of Panama and head north.
Our trip starts on really solid ground. Panama's Caribbean side is home to this massive, almost unbroken belt of forest that acts like a southern anchor for the whole corridor. So for the wildlife down there, this part of the path is already wide open.
As we cross the border into Costa Rica, the forest corridor just flows seamlessly right into the Talamanca Mountains. This whole area is basically a fortress of biodiversity, and it's protected by La Amistad International Park, which is this huge preserve shared by both countries.
So far, the path has been pretty clear, right? But this is where our journey hits a snag. We've reached the critical gaps, the missing links that threaten to keep this whole continental dream from ever becoming a reality.
So, after hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of nearly continuous forest, where exactly does this incredible wildlife highway just stop? It really comes down to two major bottlenecks. First, you've got the Reventazan Valley. It's a lowland area that was cleared out for farming and towns. Then, a little further north, you hit the Sarapaqui lowlands, which is this patchwork quilt of pineapple plantations and cattle pastures that separates the forests of central Costa Rica from its northern border.
But here's what makes this whole thing so compelling. The main gap we're talking about, it's only about 15 to 20 kilometers wide. And in some spots, it's less than 8. The two sides of the forest are so tantalizingly close, it makes the goal feel achievable, you know? It's just a matter of bridging this relatively small but absolutely critical divide.
Okay, so why go through all this trouble? Let's talk about the incredible ecological payoff of making this corridor whole. What actually happens when the path is finally complete?
The benefits are just immense. A connected corridor lets genes flow between different populations, which is huge for preventing the dangers of inbreeding. It allows for something called demographic rescue, which basically means animals from a healthy area can move in and help out a population that's struggling. And this is a big one. It gives species a pathway to move to higher, cooler elevations as our climate gets warmer.
And for the jaguar, the apex predator of this whole ecosystem, this isn't just helpful, it's absolutely essential. The Wildlife Conservation Society calls this corridor the vital link connecting the jaguar populations in the Talamanca Mountains with the ones in those huge forests to the north.
And the stakes really couldn't be clearer. Look at this. In those isolated parks, you might have these small, genetically vulnerable populations. But once you connect them, research suggests the landscape could support a much bigger, much healthier meta-population, a whole network of interacting groups of around 250 jaguars.
That is literally the difference between long-term survival and just fading away.
And it's not just for the jaguars. For the critically endangered great green macaw, this corridor connects its most important feeding and nesting grounds. And the restoration work here gets super specific. It's all about planting the mountain almond tree, because that's the macaw's #1 food source and where it loves to nest.
So what's the grand prize here? If these final links can be forged, especially connecting Costa Rica up to the massive India maize reserve in Nicaragua, it would create a single connected biological unit of 1.2 million hectares. That's over 12,000 square kilometers of protected, connected life. It's just a staggering thought.
And that really is the ultimate takeaway. This isn't about creating something totally from scratch. The great forests, the mountains, the rivers, all the pieces of the path are already there. The monumental task and the incredible opportunity is to finally make it whole.